process theology, so I consider it the process theology. And I want to express my appreciation. Can you hear? Okay, I'll try louder.
You can come sit closer on the floor. There's
Okay,
lots of room on
standing
the
up
floor.
will help. Yes, thank you. Yes. Okay. I appreciate all of you joining us. I think this is a wonderful way to have real worship. And Bonnie is an extraordinary worship leader in whatever context or site she may have to do that. Thank you, Bonnie, for this opportunity. I am sentimentally remembering my youth. And my youth took place in the last years of the social gospel. And I think the social gospel is too little appreciated. It was a response to the Industrial Revolution. And the preachers in some eastern and midwestern cities recognized that the message that they were preaching was very individualistic and focused upon what individuals did to individuals. And of course, there's nothing wrong with any of that. But the real issues of that time were what were happening to the workers in the factories who were being systematically abused and exploited and so forth. And they needed to focus on that. And with that awakening to the limitations of what they had been doing, they read the New Testament a little more accurately. Because out of the New Testament we have abstracted this very individualistic message, but that was not the message of Jesus. We are told more than once in the New Testament that Jesus understood his mission as proclaiming, and in those days we called it the kingdom of God. Now, I'm not for one moment suggesting that what they were doing and what we were doing, because I was part of that as a young person, was adequate for today. But in those days, it gave us clarity as to what our mission was. And we used the language of building the kingdom. And that stirred the heart. People really felt if they could take part with God in the building of the kingdom, that gave meaning to life. And it gathered together the energies of many people so that the social gospel became the dominant form of Protestant religion in the mainstream. Now that it created the ecumenical movement. I think it really created the first parliament of world religions. I have not studied those origins, but that came into being during the heyday of the social gospel. And the reason for the ecumenical movement was so that we, working together, we could have a greater impact upon what actually happened in society. It was very tough-minded and realistic. The Socialist Party in this country grew out of the social gospel. The man who ran for president time after time was a Presbyterian minister. There was a very close relationship in this country between the passion for the social gospel, the passion for building the kingdom of God on the one hand, and what actually happened really had an impact. Much of Christian missions, especially in Asia, grew out of the social gospel. That was much less true in Africa. I better not let myself get distracted going off on these tangents. But it was the sense that Jesus wanted to create a different world that motivated us to join Jesus in a task that badly needed to be done. And finally, when Roosevelt became president, his New Deal was taken from the message of the social gospel. It would not have succeeded if there had not been tens of millions of people in the country who had already been calling for just those things that rose from that. So it was one of the great periods of the church. Now, it has gotten a bad name. And if you look at it from today's perspective, in light of the various forms of liberation theology, and also the tendency of the social gospel to use language like, we build the kingdom, instead of understanding that God is building the kingdom and we're working with God. But you know, you can lean too far the other way. We and God, God can't do it without us, just as much as we can't do it without God. And I think most of us in the social gospel days knew that. The social gospel captured the minds of many of the best college students. We Methodists had the best youth magazine that's ever been published. Some of you have heard of Motive. It was really quite remarkable. So I look back to those days with nostalgia because the church just ain't there now. Now, there are many things the church understands now that it did not understand then. And I'm not suggesting we try to renew the social gospel. But we did know what the mission was then. Today we don't know what the mission is. And our work is fragmented, dramatically fragmented. Some people are working for the one cause, some people are working for another. We have no unifying understanding. Now, I do believe that if we did not use the language, a kingdom of God, I have recommended a translation, which is really a translation, not a replacement, the divine commonwealth. I think we might be able, around a phrase like that, to bring people together in a way that would give some young people growing up in our Protestant churches would know the church was committed to something very important, something world transforming. And it was really out to work with God in creating that. So many of our young people just don't see that church is very important. It seems to be twiddling its thumbs. I'm sorry, that's too strong a term, but I'm afraid that's the way we are viewed. I think we could do better. And I think we could learn better from the past. But then I mean to be talking not just sentimentally about the past, but positively about the present. We are here in the midst of a wonderful assemblage of people from many different traditions. And as Christians, I don't think we are called to renew explicitly Christian language. I think it's better if we can find language that is neutral among all of these traditions. And I think we are more faithful to Jesus when we do that. So from my point of view, that is not a compromise or a watering down, but simply finding a language that would talk about God's will being done. Now, take a look at the Lord's Prayer. It's really a remarkable document, and it does almost certainly come very close to being from the lips of Jesus. Now, Jesus was speaking Aramaic. We have only a Greek version. I don't want to press these scholarly matters, but I hope that we really have it. What is the kingdom? What is the basileia? That's the Greek, which I want to translate commonwealth, because I think in Jesus' understanding it's much more a commonwealth than it is a kingdom. But the commonwealth, what do you pray for? You don't have to pray for your personal interests. There's nothing I about the Lord's Prayer. It's all we. And the we, I think, is not just It may be the Christians who are doing, or the followers of Jesus who are calling themselves weak, but we are praying for everybody. The next phrase explains what the Commonwealth is. It is where God's will is done. We pray your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. I think at this conference we learn a lot about what God's will is. We learn from each other. We learn from other traditions. I don't think there's anything about Jesus' message that says you shouldn't listen and pay attention to what's going on and then reshape the specifics of what it means. Quite the contrary, we should be learning all the time what is God's will. I personally think that in addition to learning the content from listening and hearing, that there is a still small voice that often carries us farther than that objective learning might come. I think God is really part of every moment of our experience. And if we will attend to what I call the call forward, that is actually a lived experience, we will be a participant.